Welcome to the Heal Your Hunger Show, where we get to the heart of why you overeat and how to stop. If you struggle with food and weight like I did, welcome home. Welcome everybody to the Heal Your Hunger Show, where we get to the heart of why you overeat and how to stop. My name is Tricia Nelson. I'm your host, and I'm really happy that you joined me here. My guest is someone very special. His name is Tom Malterre, and he's began studying nutrition as a 10-year-old boy and has never stopped. After suffering from fatigue, joint pain, and bowel issues in high school, Tom discovered he had food sensitivities that were behind his pain. He started teaching about the Elimination Diet over a decade ago and recently wrote the best-selling book, The Elimination Diet, in March of 2015. Through an online Elimination Diet program, Tom has helped thousands of people find health and happiness again. With his 2 nutritional science degrees and certification from the Institute of Functional Medicine, Tom always provides down-to-the-earth concepts backed by cutting-edge science. And the reason why I have Tom here today is because many people who are emotional eaters, who struggle with food and weight, also are very sensitive in their bodies. And they are, first of all, they're eating things that probably aren't so good for their health, and those different ingredients are wreaking havoc on their health. So there's a lot of all kinds of immunity, autoimmunity issues, and health issues that they end up experiencing. And I am one of these people. And strangely, it's not necessarily from a bad diet, because by the grace of God, I've had a good diet for many years. But still, I do have a sensitive body, and I have some issues like leaky gut and SIBO and some other things, some infections that I didn't know about, such as Lyme. So I am one of those sensitive souls, not just emotionally, but physically as well. And so I'm dealing with some of that. So this topic about the elimination diet and how to really achieve health and happiness through what we eat is so important. And I can't think of anybody better than to talk about this than Tom. So welcome, Tom.
Tricia, it's an honor to be with you, and I just have to share with your audience a little bit about you.
Oh.
And I remember the first time I met you, you are the type of person who wears your entire heart out on your sleeve.
Oh.
I mean, you are probably the most approachable, passionate person right from the get-go. You can just see who you are right away, and you say a word, I am sensitive. And I think that also means you're vulnerable, right? In that you really put yourself out there. Like, you can't help but love life and love people and be exposed all the time. So yes, that's going to make you sensitive. And I think a lot of your audience is probably going to be sensitive because of the same reason, right? They know how to love. They know how to feel. They know how to express emotion, right?
Absolutely.
Not always with everybody, especially people who are closed off to that. But my gosh, I mean, that's such a gift. So I have to honor that gift first and foremost before we start, because I think it's a breath of fresh air.
Oh, well, thank you. That's very sweet. And, I'm not that way with everybody, because some people's energy is very closed off, but yours is very open, and you are such a sweetheart. So I have loved you ever since I met you. So thank you. Yeah. Thanks for your openness and for all this great information. And for everybody who doesn't know about Tom, this is his 3rd book, The Elimination Diet, and the 2 other books, right? It's number 3 for you. Is that correct?
That's right.
Okay.
Yes.
All right.
Yes.
So the other 2, one of which I have, is called the Whole Life Nutrition Cookbook, which, do you see these things up here?
I see your markers and your dog ears. I think it's lovely.
It's a great book that you wrote with your wife, Allison, and she's the recipe creator, correct?
She is a food genius.
Oh my God.
Yes. So she's one of those people who dreams in recipes.
Oh,
like,
wow.
I'm not even joking. Like, you go into the shower and you're relaxing and you're thinking to yourself, like, oh wow, like, I have this creative thought about how I can help people with, mood and food and everything. She's the type of person who comes out of the shower and starts writing. And she's like, oh, I got this recipe, and so she comes up with this amazing intuitive book, the Whole Life Nutrition Cookbook, and asked me for science, and then we partnered together on the Nourishing Meals book. And yeah, thousands and thousands of people have loved those books. Mm-hmm. And I think it's because of that kind of intervention with whatever's out there that feeds her recipes, because they're delicious.
They are
incredibly healthy, and we partner together really nicely. So
you certainly do. It's just great, and she's a sweetheart. So I'm just going to, I'm going to be the same novice that other people may be if they're listening. Some people may be very educated about this. I mean, I am not a nutritionist or a clinician, so this is all really helpful to me. And I know you explain it in layman terms. I mean, basically, people are getting sick from what they eat. And tell me about that.
Okay, I will. This is a fascinating thing for me. You know, I'm a dad, and like you, I find it really easy to open my heart to people because, you know, if you ever stop for a second and you just suck in what's going on around you, there's so much to fall in love with, right?
Yeah.
I mean, there are flowers, and there's the sky, and there's these people, and there's just so much, right? And I have these children, and these children are like, forget about it. You watch them being born, and then, you know, you have this entire connection with them for the rest of your life, and you want to kind of nourish that. You kind of want to protect that. So as a person who's curious about what makes life work, how do we tick, you know, what's happening behind the scenes, I'm always looking at the science, right? I'm thinking, so many people are coming in to see me these days, and they aren't what they could be. They don't have the spark. They don't have the joie de vivre, right? They're coming in and they have pain and they have frustration and they're depressed and they're dragging all the time. And I say, well, what's missing, right?
Right.
Why is this happening? And it used to be so simple, Tricia. I would say, you know, get some rest and eat some vegetables and watch what happens. You're going to be great. And they would, and they, you know, got better, right? And now it's just so complicated, right? There's this gas, nausea, bloating that they constantly have, and they're on a stack of medications, and they've been told 1,000 different things from 1,000 different people, and so people are just heavier than they used to be, right? They're just so bogged down, and they're frustrated. And that lack of hope is probably the hardest thing for me to address, right? So I say, well, how can we give people little wins? You know, how do we give them little pieces of information that can get them a little bit more energy and a little hope and a little bit more energy and a little hope and a little bit more energy? And it really came to me about a decade ago that, you know, food sensitivities and eating particular foods gives people more lift for the amount that they invest than pretty much anything else.
Yep.
So, yeah, I started looking first at gluten because I have multiple gluten sensitivity issues, fatigue and joint pain, and I get a little extra weight around the abdomen, and there's just so many different things when I'm eating this inflammatory food for me that happens, right? Brain fog, I want to sit on the couch for days at a time, I have zero motivation, I'm kind of cranky, right? And all I had to do, personally, was switch out of eating gluten, and, you know, all of a sudden I had this mental acuity, and this energy came back, and the joint pain disappeared, and I was just like, wow, I've got more strength, and I'm slim, and just all these things that occurred for me just woke me up and said, well, you know, if I have this, what does everybody else have? So being the type of person who wants to share and joy, I'm like, oh, you know, come on. I call up my brother's wife's, you know, mother who has problems, and I get my niece on this diet, and I get all the people that I'm learning this in clinic, you know, I'm just like, oh, you got to try this for your Hashimoto's. You got to try this for whatever it was, rheumatoid arthritis, right? And I started seeing these incredible case results. I mean, people came back and, you know, they had terrible eczema on their hands and it would disappear. People had rheumatoid arthritis for 31 years and it disappeared. I had people who had neurocognitive issues, right? Memory loss. I had this gal with MS. Like, they got better. They thought they were just heading down these paths of, you know, I'm going to live with this for the rest of my life. And they stopped living with those things. I mean, they literally no longer maintained a diagnosis of MS or rheumatoid arthritis or Hashimoto's thyroiditis. It just disappeared. So I started saying, oh my gosh, this is incredible, right? It's absolutely incredible. But it was a smaller portion of the population back then, right, 11 years ago. And now what we're seeing is the vast majority of the population is responding negatively to food.
And why that? What is that shift?
Thank you. I just got done. Did you see the Betrayal series that Tom O'Brien and
I haven't finished it. Yes.
Yeah. So
I didn't know that was both of you. That's amazing.
Well, you don't hear about me. I'm the guy behind the scenes.
Okay, that's why I didn't know.
Yeah, I don't need the credit. I just want people to feel better. But I was the one who was taking all the scientific interviews. Well, number one, I was advising on what to ask questions to the scientists because I follow all these people. Right. And then I said, all right, let's take the clips. They're going to have the best impact to get people thinking about what's happening with their bodies, right? And in that particular docuseries, we now have over 89 interviews, we traveled, he went to Leipzig, Germany, and South America, like all over the place. And we figured out that the reason so many people are reacting negatively to their own bodies is because their bodies are now sensing something different in the environment. Okay, so let's talk about this for a second.
Okay.
If you, right now, we're talking to you, and you have some sort of quote-unquote autoimmune disease, right? The most common one is Hashimoto's thyroiditis, but you also might have lupus, you also might have psoriasis, you also might have rheumatoid arthritis, you might have some sort of condition that has an autoimmune mechanism to it, right? Well, you have to think to yourself, number one, why in the world would the immune system attack myself? It doesn't make any sense. What is the immune system? Well, the immune system is a network of cells that's constantly surveying the outside environment, right? Think about it this way. You have your scent, and you have your sight, and you have your touch, right? You've got all these ways you're hearing to sense the outside environment, to determine, is there food out there? Is there something coming to get me? Or is there some sort of mate out there that I can find, right? I mean, we have these primal, connections to the outside world. We want to eat, we want to reproduce, we want to survive, right? I mean, it makes sense, literally and figuratively, right? So, but we also have a sixth sense. Because what we're seeing and hearing and smelling that we can perceive tangibly, right? We can connect with our eyesight, is one level. But there's a whole other level of life out there that's microscopic. So we have to be able to touch those with teeny cell to molecule interactions. So we have an entire network under our skin and in our nasal passage when we're breathing in, and in our mouths, and in our esophagus, and our stomach, and our intestinal tract. We have an entire network of little cells that reach out and they sense the outside world. And for some reason, we call them the immune cells.
Okay.
Should be called the environmental sensing cells, right? So our environmental sensing network is what it should be called instead of the immune system. What does the immune system even mean, right? So when you change what you're giving to this sixth sense, this network of cells, by changing the air quality, by changing the water quality, by changing the food quality, then you literally change the shape of things that they're coming in contact with all the time. And this is what we found in these 89 interviews traveling across the globe for over a year. We found that autoimmunity is not what you think it is. Autoimmunity is your own cells changing shape because they're influenced by things in your environment. So, for example, I thought this was fascinating, right? We interviewed Professor Schoenfeld, one of the most astute autoimmune experts on the planet. And he said, gosh, one of the tightest connections we have for autoimmunity is smoking. And he said when people smoke, the chemicals in the smoke contents go into the lung, and they change the shape of the lung cell, the alveoli. The proteins actually change shape. And then the immune system sees these. Let's talk about that for a second. How does an immune cell see something, right? It doesn't have eyes. It's a cell, right? It goes off of mating, right? There's something called information, right? The form of something allows it to mate with another form. Let's say you have an immune cell and it travels around and it binds to or mates different structures. And it sees skin cells. I recognize that, no problem. And it goes and it sees, a protein in your blood called albumin. Oh, I see that, I recognize that. And then all of a sudden it comes across this lung cell that's disformed and has a chemical stuck to it. Well, then all of a sudden it comes up to that and says, whoa, what's that? Right? I don't recognize this. That's a different structure. And it says, alert and alarm, we're under attack by a foreign substance. And then it sends out all these chemicals to attract more immune cells, and those chemicals can cause redness, swelling, heat, pain, something we know as inflammation, right? And this inflamed process, and at the same time it sends out little antibodies to say, hey, immune cells, if you see this anywhere else, make sure you attack it. It's not self, it's foreign. We need to get rid of this, make sure the body's functioning well, right? Well, as it's doing that, it's saying, all right, great, I'm getting rid of this. What if, as it's going out, those antibodies start attacking to another protein that has that chemical stuck on it, or another protein that looks like that damaged protein? This is called molecular mimicry. It mimics the shape of this compound.
Huh.
Now, Schoenfeld's guessing that a lot of autoimmune diseases are actually caused by air pollution. He's saying the vast majority of people, as we're polluting the air, are now smoking because it's changing the shape of their proteins in their lungs. So is that clear? Is that complicated?
It's so clear. I'm so glad you explained it because I actually almost get it. That's amazing. I mean, I really... Wow. I'm like 95% there with you. That's really amazing. So, but when you, I mean, literally, so, I mean, the horrifying thing is that we're smoking even when we're not smoking, is what you're saying.
So one of our speakers, Dr. Walter Krinian, he said, more importantly than the foods, more importantly than anything else, the water, let's start with the air. He says, let's get some of those pleated aerostatic filters put on your furnace that are HEPA, that can take out all the dust particles, because a lot of harmful chemicals travel in the dust, right?
Yeah.
Let's make sure you are not using scented products in your home.
Right.
That are laden with chemicals. You know, those plug-in things on the wall, the sprays that you put on your furniture, the scented candles, your cologne, your aftershave, your perfume. You know, I teach detox for the Institute for Functional Medicine. I can show you stacks of research how bad those things are. The dryer sheets, your scented shampoos, like you name it. If you're smelling chemically floral smells all the time, or cinnamon from your scented candles, you're inhaling chemicals that are changing the shape of your lung tissue and are causing problems, right? So really watch out for the scented products. That's the first thing for air pollution.
That's amazing. Yeah, gosh, it's everywhere, isn't it?
Cleaning agents, you name it, right? So find those things in your home and then find a good air purifier. You know, I use an Austin Air Health Make Plus here in the office. I mean, there's some other intelligent, air purifiers out there that get rid of something called volatile organic compounds from the walls, right? From formaldehyde from your furniture, from off-gassing of your carpet, right? So you want to make sure it gets rid of something called VOCs, and it's a HEPA filter. So then that is a great way to start, right? Just clean up your air. Then you can do water purification. I like the Berkey water filters. I put those on my countertop, right? You can pour your tap water in there. That's a fantastic way. And then you start looking at your food, right? But this is just sheer matter of volume that your immune cells are coming in contact with. How many thousand? It's like 7,000+ cubic feet of air is coming in through your lungs all the time because you're inhaling, exhaling, inhaling, exhaling, inhaling, exhaling. And then you're drinking water, and then you're eating food, right? So if you can just watch the things that you're coming in contact with, that will change what your immune system responds to. So you'll give yourself a leg up. Now, I have a theory. You ready for this theory?
Yeah.
People who are sensitive to life, people who experience emotion, energy in motion, they leave themselves vulnerable to all those signals from other people, from the outside world, right? Those people might have a tendency to also respond to those signals quite quickly. So I think they're more sensitive to autoimmune diseases as well. And I taught a class last night. I don't know if you know, but I teach classes to doctors online, right? I teach physicians about biochemistry and nutrition and functional medicine. And last night's class was fascinating. I was talking about digestion, right? And how many people do you know who are sensitive have gas, nausea, and bloating, right? How many people do you know are sensitive, right?
Me, hello.
Yeah. How many people do you know that are sensitive that will be on some sort of medication or supplement for digestion, right? So let's say I go into a doctor's office and I say, hey, doc, how are you? I have gas, nausea, and bloating after I eat. I get gastroesophageal reflux. What's the first thing that doc's going to give me?
Purple pill.
Purple pill.
Yep.
Nexium, omeprazole, sodium, magnesium, some sort of what's called proton pump inhibitor or acid blocking therapy. Mm-hmm. They're going to block the acid. Okay? What happens when you block acid? Check this out. Number one, you can't digest your food. Okay?
Yeah, that's a problem.
Okay. So I want you to look at this visual. Don't do this at home. I want you to imagine you have a steel bucket, and in that steel bucket you have battery acid. Okay? And I want you to take another steel bucket, and in that steel bucket I want you to put in table vinegar. And then I'm going to have you do a T-bone steak test. You're going to take that T-bone steak and you're going to drop it in the acid bucket. Okay? And immediately you're going to start to see reactions. Okay? Now, take that same T-bone steak and drop it in your bucket of vinegar. And you're going to have a really nice marinade for your steak. It can sit in there for days, and it's just going to start marinating it, right? Two totally different rates of reaction. Why? Because of the pH, the amount of acid, the amount of protons that are available to break apart bonds, right? You know this. Everybody knows this. It's a simple science experiment. Did you know this? Within hours, and definitely within days, of taking these acid-blocking medications, you shift your pH from something that's similar to battery acid to literally table vinegar. You go from a pH of 1.7, 1.9, which is closer to battery acid, to a pH of 5. Now, what we find is there's no way you can break down your food effectively when you're at a pH of 5. You'll marinate your food. You won't break it down.
Okay.
So oftentimes people who are on these proton pump inhibitors, they'll be deficient in amino acids. The least common amino acid is tryptophan, so oftentimes they're deficient in tryptophan. Wait. Tryptophan? The very same amino acid I need to feel happiness? The very same amino acid I need to have good sleep? I might be deficient in tryptophan? Absolutely, I see it very commonly. What about magnesium? Wait. Magnesium, that thing that I'm hearing all over the internet, is really good to keep my mind calm, to keep my muscles calm. The most important mineral on the planet? Yes, the very same one. B vitamins, things like B12 and folates, things that give me energy, that improve my mood, that allow me to be happy. So wait a second, I might have been given a particular medication that could be making my problems worse. Could be initiating my problem or making my problems worse. So I was sharing last night a protocol where people can take B vitamins and 5-HTP, and it's actually more effective than the proton pump inhibitors for getting rid of GERD.
Okay.
But here's the caveat. Here's the catching thing. Where did it come from? Why did you have GERD to begin with?
Exactly.
And I found this incredible World Journal of Gastroenterology article that got to the root of it. It's like one of those things that was hidden in the back end of the article. Like you had to read every single line to see it.
And you did, of course.
Of course I did. And it says on this line, it says, interesting observation was, we found that when people had stressful situations in their lives, things like auto accidents, death of a spouse, change of job, some sort of attack or harassment, when they had these stressful situations in their lives, within months after that, they started having GERD.
Wow. Scientifically proven.
It's right there.
Yeah. Which makes so much sense, because I think if anybody looks back at if they have GERD issues, my dad died of esophageal cancer. So, he had it for years. As a kid, he used to just hit a bottle of Gelusol by his bed, this chalky tablet that he literally every night would pop a couple of those. And I liked them, of course, because they had sugar in them. So I'd go and decide I needed some Gelusil also. But yeah,
tasty.
Yeah, he always was struggling with that. And it was just like a part of life. He just had indigestion. That's all, and who knew, in the 70s and 80s, the extent to which it was destroying his body, and causing cancer to have this problem. But that's, I think so many people, especially listening or tuning in here, they're eating foods that are causing them that. And the problem is we're just slapping on a symptom. The medication is just, treating the symptoms. So it's, nothing's getting solved. And as you said, it's not getting solved. It's actually making the problem worse.
The FDA now has multiple warnings against the taking of these acid-blocking medications.
Really?
Yeah, absolutely.
Wow, and that I don't hear anything about that. That's crazy. All I see is more commercials for this stuff. Wow.
After you've had your pizza and beer, make sure you take the purple pill.
Yeah.
Yes, certain foods can trigger gastroesophageal reflux. Yes. The environment in which that happens, though, is usually an environment that's already imbalanced. And what we're seeing is imbalanced by emotional trauma or stress.
Right. And I forgot to get to that point when I was talking to my dad. I don't consider, bottom line is I believe that to be true with him. He was somebody who bottled up his emotions. He didn't talk about things. He was a very can-do guy. He was very efficient and serious, way too serious, just had a lot of emotional baggage that he held on to and didn't deal with, and was very introverted, and it was sort of like a time bomb. So it just was kind of a sad thing that he got cancer. But I have to say, I wasn't totally surprised that he did because of that emotional baggage and an inability or lack of really outlets that I guess that he could access or felt comfortable accessing to get stuff out. So I totally believe that stress has a lot to do with that and can really trigger that. I totally believe that.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Now, the interesting thing is, when you're talking about the human, right, there's never one solution.
For sure.
And isn't that weird?
Yeah.
How,
that's really a bummer, actually.
Yeah. Well, because we're such trusting, we're such, loving human beings that, we'll glom onto anything that's positive and we'll, blow it up. We're, have so much optimism towards it. We'll be like, that's it.
Yeah.
It's the acid blocking, medication I've been on.
Right.
That's the cause of my thing. Or it's the food sensitivities. If I get rid of gluten, that's the thing.
Oh, if only it were that simple.
And it's always going to come back down to a million things. It's never one. I hate to say the word million, but it's true.
It is true.
Yeah. So it's going to be the emotions. It's going to be the medication. It's going to be the food. It's going to be the lack of nutrition. You probably need some nutrients to pull you back on track.
Right.
It's going to be the exercise. It's going to be the emotional network of support. It's going to be the foundational things you need for life. It's going to be the clean air, the clean water, the clean food. It's going to be all that stuff.
Yep.
Right? Now, the neat thing is by making quick little shifts, right, you can start building up each one. And once you find one thing that brings you joy and happiness and gets you to that next level, then you have the energy to look for the next thing, right? And then the next thing, and then the next thing. And then it becomes this incredible journey of evolution, of growth, of change.
It's
right?
so true. I always say that to people is that it's, bad health is progressive. You do something that makes you feel bad about yourself and then you feel a little bit crappier. So who cares if you do something else? If you smoke, well, who cares if you eat a donut? It's just, you start feeling bad after bad after bad, and it's just, you're already in the swamp. So what's it matter? But, good health is progressive as well. You go to the gym, you exercise, and you're feeling a little bit better, and all of a sudden you want to eat a salad, and all of a sudden you feel like, well, I'm going to take care of myself and get more rest. You just start really caring about self-care, and it feeds on itself.
That's it. And anytime you're doing new behaviors, give yourself a break. You spent a lifetime learning bad behaviors. You're not going to learn something overnight. I've got the 5 kids, right? If I say, I really would like you to unload the dishwasher and load the dishwasher back up. For you and I, that means 1,000 different things. Okay, Bowls have to be placed this way. Make sure you pre-rinse on certain dishes with sticky things, blah, blah. They don't know that yet.
Right.
They're just hearing the surface piece, right? They have to get that, oh, I forgot to rinse this dish and it's coming out of the dishwasher and now it's got this sticky stuff on it. Next time I will do this, right? So it's the same thing with any new behavior. I'm going to start exercising. Well, I didn't know I was going to be sore for 2 days after exercise. Well, why don't you start a little slower, be patient with yourself, make sure you got the right form. And it's like, it's an uphill battle. Any change is an uphill battle.
Right.
An uphill battle with your body. It's an uphill battle with your mind. But if you're just consistent and you say, take one thing. I'm going to go to bed every night at 10 o'clock. Well, that's a tough one, actually, because whole life has to be rearranged to get to bed at 10 o'clock. Well, I'm going to eliminate gluten for 2 weeks. Choose 2 weeks, right? Eliminate gluten. First, what is gluten, right? Well, you go to my website, wholelifenutrition.net. There's a whole, click on the little articles piece and find the gluten information. We got a whole bunch of stuff. Tells you what it is, where it's hidden, all that good stuff, right? Okay, choose that, and then go to nourishingmeals.com, get our free recipes, figure it out. Go gluten-free. It's all there for you, for free. We want you to succeed, right? So you just go gluten-free, 2 weeks. That's it. Then you see how you feel, maybe you find out you weren't totally gluten-free. Maybe you got to try it again. Be patient with yourself.
Right.
Spent a whole, 20 years, 40 years, some of you, not feeling good, right? You've got all the time in the world to figure out how to feel good. Be patient with yourself. You'll get it right. And
emotional eaters are, of course, we're perfectionists. We're like, if we don't do it right the first time, screw it. I'm going to give up. That's always part of the mentality. We want to do it perfectly. And the other part of it is we're always thinking, do I have to do this forever? How can I not eat bread forever, and there's that all or nothing thinking. And that's, I think, why they came up with the 1 day at a time idea, because nobody could do this forever. And thankfully there's a lot of substitute type foods that are gluten-free, and there's so many creative ways to create delicious food without the ingredients that make us sick. But it's never an all or nothing forever type thing. It's literally just today. We're just caring for ourselves and making the best choices we can today.
Yes. And being patient with yourself if it doesn't happen the way you want it to happen.
Right.
Here's the other thing, and you'll notice I'm very conscious of this. I'm not telling people to go read my Elimination Diet and jump into my Elimination Diet program, because a lot of people are not ready for that. So it's intense. It's gluten, dairy, eggs, yeast, corn, soy. It's a lot of foods, and that can be stressful for people. I don't want people to start there. I want people to go try other things, and when it doesn't work out, then join me. Do this Elimination Diet and, be there.
Yeah.
But I want you to start small first. I want you to start feeling the benefit of trying these things and then going, looking at your medications if that's the thing. And why am I focusing on medications and food sensitivities? I'm a geek, that. Come on. Most people, they like to follow a basketball star, football star. I follow researchers, right? And so I find these people who have published really neat articles, and I'm like, wow, look at what's coming out next month from this art. Well, this one gal I've been following since 2005. Her name is Dr. Eva Untersmeyer from Vienna. Okay, and Eva has put out these incredible charts showing that when people take acid-blocking medications, they have a 10.5-fold, 1,050% increase of food responses, meaning they get sensitive to food.
Wow.
So think about this. You have a network of cells. We used to call it immune cell. We now call it environmental surveillance system. And you're ingesting some food. Normally you chew that food and you swallow it. It goes into this cauldron of acid and starts breaking apart all these incredible bonds so you can get to the amino acids and the minerals in your food, right? Then it goes down the next step, which is the upper intestinal tract, and then it breaks it down even farther, and then you absorb these teeny little things into your body, and you make muscle, and you make brain cells, and you make neurotransmitters, you make all these amazing things, right? That's how the process works. However, you take an acid-blocking medication, it causes you to have intestinal permeability. There's research on this. Causes you to have intestinal permeability, and now your food's not broken up very well. So what happens if your surveillance system sees weird, large shapes that got snuck in through a leaky gut? You're going to start responding to them. So the food reactions. People are reacting to gluten and dairy, eggs and soy, and they're reacting to tomatoes, and they're reacting to spinach, and bizarre stuff now. Just bizarre stuff. So if we can get people's acid back up, they react to less foods. So you see, I want to do this sequential. Yeah. I don't want people to go on an elimination diet and say, I'm reacting to all these foods, and then they'll take out all these foods and then later find out it's their medication that was the problem.
Right. Nothing's been solved. Yeah.
Yeah. And there's the stress piece. They need to be relaxed. There's so many different factors, right? So let's start off with simple things. Examine your medication, examine your digestion, then start going gluten-free and watch what happens, right?
So powerful. But talk to me about and tell everybody about your actual elimination diet, because it does sound amazing. If somebody is health conscious and they've been at this for a while, trying different things and trying to solve different, puzzles in their body, so they know there's a lot of things that aren't going to help them and they eliminate them already, but they haven't done the major ones. So they might be a good candidate for what you're talking about, this program. Tell us about the program.
Yeah, you bet. Well, I just tried to imagine, because I've been seeing thousands of people over the last decade plus, and I've seen what their challenges have been, right? So I'm going to go on an elimination diet. I'm determined, right? You have these optimists who are like, I'm going to do whatever it takes. And I'm like, whoa, back up. Let's go and tell you what you need from the grocery store, right? Let's give you a shopping list. Let's give you recipes. Let's also give you cooking instruction videos. Allie, the amazing chef, is in the kitchen teaching them 26 different videos, right? So showing you step by step what you need to do to make this happen. I give little audio MP3s, and I'm like, okay, here you are on day one. Here are the thoughts that are going through your head. Please call up your best friend right now and say, hey, join me on this process. I really kind of give the tips of like what people need to succeed. Yeah. And then we have PDF handouts for all this stuff, like the 7 best tips for succeeding for the elimination diet, and modifications if you're pregnant, or bringing your children along on the elimination diet. So there's all these little things that we thought through people would have problems with. And then we do these live support webinars, right? So you get on the phone, you hang out, and boom, you talk to us about the elimination diet. And then there's a support Facebook group. So if you have a question, you say, I tried this recipe, it didn't turn out very well. People will say, oh my gosh, I love that recipe. Make sure you do this. Or, this is the most common one, right? How am I ever going to do this, right? My husband or my wife is not supportive, and my in-laws think I'm crazy, and, gosh, what am I going to do for this? Don't worry, tell them this, do this, right? So this is wonderful network of support, because I'll tell you, more than anything, having a tribe will create success for you. If you try and take the world on by yourself with your own perspective and viewpoint, you're going to miss little things that will save you a lifetime. Basically, because of stress.
Yeah,
right?
we all need the community support. There's no question about it. I love that. It sounds like such an amazing program, and I love that you videotaped Allison in the kitchen, because I think so many people and I'm guilty of this as well, just want to get, I live a block and a half from Whole Foods, so so I'm there all the time. Yeah, it's pretty nice, but what it does is it keeps me from cooking for myself a whole lot. So I love that she's there talking about literally how to put these recipes together, and I think we all need that, and I think especially emotional eaters do, because so much of the time we're eating on the run. We're not taking the time to sit down and eat our meals in a self-caring way. We're eating on the run, which means we're eating fast foods, which means we're not getting the nutrients we need. And the thought of cooking just seems like too much work. Who has time when the most self-caring thing we can do? I make a lot of salads, so I'm really into like big yummy salads, and I love cutting up the vegetables because it's part of self-care. Like I'm sending a message to the universe, like I'm worth the time it takes to wash and cut this pepper and this carrot, and it's just that the whole, it's so much more than just making a salad.
Okay. It's almost religious. Okay.
Yeah.
Seriously, when I first decided I wasn't going to live an unconscious life anymore, right? I was working 3 jobs, and I had a high maintenance partner, and I was driving this high maintenance racing motorcycle. It had to be perfect, and there were just so many things. I was taking 18 units of school. I mean, I was just like, life was like, yeah, I'm living the dream, and I was just like, right? And I was driving down the street one day, and then I looked up and I saw a hawk soaring overhead. This is in Southern California, right? So I pull over to the side of the highway, and I just stare at this hawk for a while, and I was like, I'm missing simplicity. I'm missing a connection to nature and life and, air. And I'm just like, what am I doing? Like, there's something there that I don't have, right? And within days, I'm packed up, broke up with my girlfriend, sold my motorcycle, I'm in a truck, and I'm driving north, okay?
That's awesome. That's a great story.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
So I take off, and I'm driving until I'm just surrounded by trees, okay? And then once I'm surrounded by these trees, I'm like, okay, this is it. And I ended up here in Bellingham, Washington. And for the first few months, I did nothing but camp. I put all my stuff in storage, and I went from coastal campgrounds to mountain campgrounds, and I was hiking through ridge lines, and I just hung out in nature. And I came back realizing, like, this is it. Like, I need to be connected to this entire process. And so I went into the grocery store, local co-op, and I started going to seek out certain foods that made me feel more connected, right? And then I realized I needed to know where the foods came from. So I went and I talked to the farmers where the foods came from. And I went out and toured their farms, and I got to know them and the energy they put in. And the whole experience, every time I got more connected to what I was putting into my body and where it came from and how that was connected to the earth, I felt like another surge of power, another surge of like energy and like belonging.
Absolutely.
Like I'm part of something much bigger than myself. This whole thing is grandiose and divine and gorgeous, and like I just wanted more. I wanted more of that connectedness, that feeling of belonging. And so now I got the whole process started, right? And that's what I encourage people to do. Preparing meals, shopping for your food is so much more than just putting something in your mouth. It's you reconnecting with life. It's you reconnecting with the entire cycle of where air and water become a plant and soil become a plant. And then you take that trapped sun energy and revitalize your entire life with it, If you start looking at it that way, it becomes spiritual. It's amazing.
Absolutely. I totally believe that. I love it. And I love the way you describe things, Tom. You're just so descriptive and visual. And anybody who's listening or watching is really going to be right there with you. And I want to go cook. I want to go do something really healthy. So gosh, I just love it so much. Thank you so much for bringing this information to us. For anybody who's tuning in, you can learn more about his Elimination Diet program from our show notes. You just go to healyourhunger.com and go to the podcast section, and you'll get all the links that you need that he's talked about, so that you can take advantage of that. If you're ready for that step, I think that's a great thing to do, because you deserve to be healthy and feel whole and free. It's just so important that you treat your body with the respect that it deserves and that you deserve. So I think that's great. And I want to thank you so much. I have a final question for you, Tom.
Yeah.
And I ask all my guests this, and you've probably already mentioned it, but tell us what your deepest hunger is.
My deepest hunger is for myself and others to realize the interconnectedness we all have. So that same feeling that I have for the hawk and the air and the water and the food, I would hope that we all shared that together. Because I think when we realize, come on, native cultures around the globe, they thought the air and the sun and the water and the food were gods. They literally praised the energy behind that. And I think when we praise all that energy and we realize that is us, and we can praise ourselves, we can say, we're really miracles. The fact that we were able to grasp the minerals from the earth, the fire from the sun, the carbohydrates and plant chemicals from the plants, and then creates this conscious being that can perceive things and connect with things and emit energy towards each other and receive energy. It's just it's incredible. So my deepest hunger is to share that and receive that. I think that if we all were conscious of it, it would be a totally different planet we're living on.
Amen. I totally believe that. Well, thank you so much. It's beautiful, and you're awesome, and keep doing the good work. And I didn't even mention, and I will now, that on our website too, you can access Tom's the first chapter of your book, The Elimination Diet, which is wonderful. So thank you for that gift. That's a free gift to all of you.
Oh, pleasure.
Yeah, that's great. Well, God bless you and all the good work that you're doing, and happy to you and your family. And thank you. And I look forward to cooking more recipes out of your cookbook.
Oh, yeah, I hope you enjoy those, and I'm honored to share time and space with you, Tricia. Keep up the fabulous work.
Thank you.
All right.
If you enjoyed this podcast and want to get free support, insider health info, exclusive invites to events, and more, visit healyourhunger.com.